I don't know why I like it. I just always have.
This is a conscious effort on our part to open the creative envelope, so to speak, in order to entertain you in a more contemporary manner. Even though we call ourselves sports entertainment because of the athleticism involved, the key word in that phrase is entertainment.
Vince McMahon has lost his mind. The man doesn't have it anymore.
We in the WWF think that you, the audience, are quite frankly tired of having your intelligence insulted.
Have you watched the television show lately?
We also think that you're tired of the same old simplistic theory of good guys versus bad guys. Therefore, we've embarked upon a far more innovative and contemporary creative campaign that is far more invigorating and extemporaneous than ever before.
Because while Doink the Clown had a green hair and a rubber nose, Stone Cold Steve Austin was drinking his first beer in ECW, damn you. Oh, we got attitude. You got nothing, man.
As the times have changed, so have we.
Strap yourself in, plug yourself down. That's not right, but who cares? This is Beyond the Beermat. My name is Stuart Quigley. Alongside me is Matt.
Hello.
See?
Hello, Stuart.
I did the intro this time for you. I actually introduced you in the way that you would care to be introduced, which is to say, leave the talking mostly to me. Feels like a moral for the podcast, to be honest. Yeah. Before we get into the main meat of today's discussion, I'm going to throw something at you just to see where we take this. Many different roads, avenues, sideways, sidetracks. We have some good memories, some good laughs along the way, or potentially we chat shit for about 2 minutes and then move along with our lives, which is... Beyond the Beermat is obviously a true franchise for not just the sports entertainment industry, but just entertainment as a whole. And what we've been granted now by the special developmental team that we've been working down on is we've been granted the ability to time travel, right?
Oh, wicked.
And that's great.
Oh,
Yeah?
I love time travelling.
Right. So in that regard, we are going to sit down and we're going to go live to a pay-per-view of past your... We're going to do a podcast about it. So here's the question. Which pay-per-view are you going to use our newfound special powers to go to record a podcast about the full-on experience of?
Are we actually going
We're
to?
going to it.
We're going to it?
Yeah. So time travel and a certain amount of money as well, I would assume.
Oh, that is a toughie.
Effectively, that's a very long-winded version of me just saying which pay-per-view from the past would you like to go to?
Can I go anywhere?
Yeah. I'm not going to lie, there's a part of me that wouldn't mind going to the WCW pay-per-view where Goldberg lost the streak, and the TNA pay-per-view where Jeff Hardy turned up drunk.
I watched that live. Yeah, man. I couldn't tell you the name of it. I'd have to
Turning
get
Point 2011.
Was it? Is that what it was called?
I believe so.
Oh, the irony of that name. Yeah, I do remember that. I was really looking forward to that moment. I don't know why, because it's only Sting and Jeff Hardy, and so it's like, it's only Sting and Jeff Hardy.
I think when you say it's only Sting and Jeff Hardy, I feel like that's the kind of thing that if it was on a WWE card...
Under the banner of the Fed.
Yeah. You'd probably look at it and go, oh, this feels like a bit of a... It's up there, but you wouldn't be like really hype about it. I feel like under the TNA umbrella as it is, that's about as good as you can get. So I'll give you that in terms of like the hype for it. But
no, man, you could have had... There was a lot of people on the TNA roster at that time.
I've just looked at the rest of that card. I'm not entirely sure, even though I've suggested we go to this pay-per-view to watch it in person, to review it for the podcast. Even with that main event, I'm a little bit like, ooh, the rest of this card.
I like the way you're building a whole time machine. You're making an evolution in humans' ability to do anything.
Yeah.
And yet, for some reason, you just want to go and see a piss man get defeated.
Hang on,
in 1
this
minute
is
and 30
exactly
seconds.
like one of the worst adverts that's on TV right now.
Yeah.
That Quick Quid advert where the woman gets phoned up by her son who's just finished having a wank or something. He's like, oh, the dishwasher's broken. And they've got the ability to stop time, and all they use it to do is have a bit of a think as to whether I need a loan, and then start time again.
That's more important. If you're a single mother, which she clearly is, you've got a prepubescent boy that's just learning about the art of masturbation, a daughter that needs to be taken to school, and you've got a job to hold down as well. You've got mouths to feed. Someone needs to put bread on the table.
I'm just
Having
saying,
a washing machine is very important.
if you've got the powers of time machine,
yeah.
if you've got the powers of like stopping time, like Bernard's watch, then I wouldn't necessarily be that worried about my 9 to 5.
No, I guess not. No, yeah, she probably has got it all wrong. She's got her priorities completely fucking wrong.
I was going to say, like, in my instance, yes, okay, I'm going to see a drunk man wrestle.
You can do that anyway. Just go to any Scott Hall pay-per-view.
Harsh. He's used the power of DDP yoga now. He's fine.
Oh, he's been saved by the late great. He's not late. He's not dead. DDP.
I mean, he might not be on time to everything. You know, maybe. But okay, then there's. I said that we've been going. What the ones that I've rattled off are terrible-ish ones. There's the standard ECW one night stand pay-per-views. That'd have been a good experience, but I feel like the better the pay-per-view, the worse it will be for like a podcast, because wrestling is so much powered by negativity that when you get a group of men sitting around going, yeah, it was good that, you're just like, nah, you're alright.
Are you going to ask me where I'd go?
Go on then.
One, if I had a time machine, I'd go back to Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Before it turned all shitty, just to like have
was
a
that Shikara pay-per-view or something?
Nah, Jurassic Park, the actual place, because I fucking love Jurassic Park. Or, this would throw a spanner in the works, Payback 2013. Now, it might be because it coincides with how I'm watching all the pay-per-views at the moment. But this show was fucking quality, especially for a really low-tier sort of B pay-per-view. Who thinks of Payback? Out of all of them, who thinks of Payback? Who thinks of 2013? And more importantly, who cares for a pay-per-view when it's got a picture of Randy Orton on the poster?
That's usually that's a dangerous sign.
Yeah, that's
There's
a bad
warning.
sign.
Yeah.
But no, I'd go just for one match because of the brutality of it. It's not brutal in terms of, there's a chair shot to the head, or oh no, Mike Awesome's throwing someone through a table outside the ring, or nah man, not that kind of hardcore. It's where they sort of dabbled in the dark arts of Dolph Ziggler, who is a fan of this podcast.
Clearly.
We certainly bloody love him. Dolph Ziggler is going down the whole concussion angle. And so old Alberto Del Rio, for the heavyweight championship, I must add.
Two of my favourites collide.
Yeah, just doing super kicks to Dolph Ziggler's head on repeat. It is fucking brutal. He throws him out the ring and Dolph catches the back of his head on the hardest part of the ring, and it's an unpleasant thing to watch, but it's also, because it's wrestling and it's a spectacle, it's a really good match. And it's horrible to say as well, because it's ADR and Dolph Ziggler. Who the fuck cares about that? Talking about like the worst pay-per-view we could imagine.
Yeah.
That match, or these two fellas, they're going to be on the card somewhere. But the fact that they're together and they put on a decent match, 13 minutes and 48 seconds, maybe goes on a bit too long, especially when he's kicking the shit out of Dolph Ziggler's head. But it was the angle, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so, contradicting what we talked about on the last podcast, or the podcast a couple of weeks ago, or whenever it came out, a good angle makes the wrestler rather than the wrestler's ability.
I think you need like a nice little blend of everything. But when I'm saying this in terms of like you going to watch a pay-per-view just so we can sort of chat shit, have a few beers, and is your criteria, you just want to see a specific match live? Is your criteria you want like a specific storyline that you want to experience live? Like I mentioned, like Goldberg losing the streak. Being in the crowd for that would have been interesting. Being in the crowd for The Undertaker losing the streak actually would have been interesting. Just because it's one thing, okay, watching...
You could have been a meme by now, Stu.
I know.
Looking all aghast and agog.
But like, just one of those moments that you can experience, and weirdly, it's hard for me to do this, but it's our podcast, so we can pretty much, we have the power of autonomy. So, time machine, yes, okay, fine, plausible, we've got that. But if we went back to, say, your 98s or your 2000s, any of those Attitude Era pay-per-views, like, suddenly I've got to remove mobile phones from the question as well.
Yeah.
Because the whole experience of watching a pay-per-view like that is very different to watching a pay-per-view now. They're a lot more succinct and a lot more, shall we say, tightly wound than the 7-hour spectaculars we get these days. But just as an experience, I think if you're going to choose to sort of go, okay, yeah, I want to see this match, but I don't care about the rest of it. But if you want to just sit and watch wrestling for a few hours, you could pretty much roll the dice with any of those.
Yeah, quite possibly. I think it's the atmosphere of the crowd as well that make the pay-per-view. In the Attitude area. In the Attitude Era, obviously...
You don't want to get hit in the Attitude Area.
It's like...
Can I just throw one out at you, which is like, you're talking about pay-per-views that no one's going to remember. I think it was Fully Loaded, and I want to say 2000.
Yeah.
When Benoit won the title, but it was taken off him, dusty finish.
Oh, is that just before WrestleMania?
I'm not sure if it was just before or just after.
Right.
But that kind of pay-per-view, I feel like, would have been an interesting experience from the point of view of just, fucking hell, I could have a word with Benoit, maybe like calm him down a little. Like, you're talking about using your time machine powers for the power of good. There's definitely a way to make things for the better, shall we say, in that regard, and not just to sit and watch a pay-per-view with a Rock main event.
Yeah, it was Fully Loaded 2000. The Rock versus Chris Benoit. Benoit's the heel. From what I recall, he didn't really come across as a heel, but he had Shane McMahon in his corner.
I don't remember that at all. When you say
sort of made him a heel.
When you say he didn't really come across as a heel, so is that like when O.J. Simpson was passed for the role as the Terminator because they didn't think he was a killer? Or when you say Benoit, that's absolutely true, by the way.
Yeah, pretty much.
Moving on. Okay, so what we're going to do is swiftly, as far away from that as possible. We noticed, and anyone attached even remotely to the wrestling business, as we are, this past week, the reintroduction, the re-injecting, if you will, of Bray Wyatt into the consciousness of us all, really. And boy, did he make a splash in terms of, at the very least, whether you like it, whether you don't like it, and we'll get onto that in a second, people are talking about him again. He was irrelevant before, a complete irrelevance.
Was he?
Yeah.
That's a bit mean.
It's true.
No, he wasn't. It was the whole Wyatt family had broken down to go and do their own things, or rip in peace, my boy Luke Harper, completely move away anyway. Braun Strowman's obviously got the super monster push.
And then I also had that taken from him.
Eric Rowan is now knocking about with the new Daniel Bryan, former world champion. And so you could see they're all getting something. So Bray Wyatt, I don't think he was irrelevant. I just don't think they put the time into him. You can't judge a man and his character and his performance just because he had a couple of matches.
Bear in mind, I'm not judging. When I say he's irrelevant, I'm not saying that's a fault of Bray Wyatt, the performer. What I mean is that he won the title out of really nowhere, and then he had a feud with Randy Orton that
culminated in the greatest match of all time that got booed to shit.
You know what the House of Horrors, or the one where he rode to the ring on a span?
Nah, man, the House of Horrors. What a beaut that match was.
Right, so Bray Wyatt, who, shall we say, at the point before the House of Horrors, needed a little bit of work. Started off fantastic. From NXT, the character that was sort of cultivated there, breathed life into, and then I remember when he joined Raw, there was like a big deal. It was just like, oh my, this is one of those moments where if I wasn't watching, I would tune in, sort of thing. That's how big of a deal him going to Raw was. And then through years and months of losing high-profile matches, like you can't solve all that just by throwing the title at him and then have Randy Orton ride to the ring on a sperm. And then House of Horrors.
That was a hot angle though. It was a big angle and it was a big thing. The problem is, the feud with Randy Orton ultimately put Orton over as the person we should all be cheering and hoping to win. And the problem is, Randy Orton was already gone and past it by this time. He's already had his time. He should be putting other people over. The best thing Bray Wyatt could have done is retain the belt.
Far be it from me.
And gone, ha ha ha, look at me, I'm still the champion. And just carried on the character, put him with someone else next.
Yeah.
That was Randy Orton's job, but no, let's put the belt on Orton instead.
Okay, I'm not the guy to defend Randy Orton, and nor should I ever be put in that position.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about being bent over the table, that is a bad position for me to be in.
Play devil's advocate.
Indeed.
Come on.
But what I will say about Randy Orton is that it's fine, that feud. But when it goes, it fucking goes off a cliff.
Yeah.
They had the Randy Orton turn far too early. And the way they were building it, you could have easily had a triple threat with your man, Luke Harper. And then you can kind of do what you want from there.
Yeah.
Like, it actually makes it easier. You don't have to then... You can have a way for Orton to escape with the belt. And there's still something or enough going on there that you don't just go, that was a load of horse shit. And then at the end of it, Randy Orton's the champion. But what it works out to is, that was all right, and Randy Orton's the champion. But then after that, you get the weirdness with Matt Hardy.
Yeah, and that was supposed to be a hot angle as well, because Hardy's come straight from TNA.
Yeah.
He's still carrying on this whole delete sort of gimmick. although he's already the champion with Jeff Hardy, which is a bit, should you be doing that? Come on, man, you're trying to make a few quid as you're retiring, as you're winding it down. They then lose the belts, and then Bray Wyatt appears, helping Matt Hardy, and that could have been something.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know, why did Bray Wyatt disappear? Was he injured?
Matt definitely was.
Then he did his fake retirement a few months ago, where he just sort of disappeared for a week. Don't really understand why they did that. And then they stuck him back with Jeff Hardy again. Jeff Hardy is good enough to have a run on his own still.
Yeah.
Yes, he's a bit temperamental, as we mentioned at the start of the podcast. He's got a bit of a sordid history, but I think it was a bit cheap for them just to... You pretty much said, sorry Bray, creative have nothing for you.
Yeah.
Stick Matt Hardy back with his brother and send him on another tag team run that's not really going anywhere.
Well, it's an awful version of creative have nothing for you, because I'm not sure if there was that much substance to the stuff Bray Wyatt was saying in the first instance. Like, he was saying all these big long words, and it was a thing. But what it translates to is, you can say all the words you want. You can say, like, fucking, I'll give you a good one about this. I seen Aleister Black cutting a promo on SmackDown, like, the darkness of my cadence, I cannot fully... And I was like, mate, that's just come straight off me doing a fucking essay, and I've changed some of the words. Like, oh, what's like face? Oh, cadence. Yeah, I'll insert that word. That's a full-on GCSE Year 9 level kind of promo. Defo. I got an A, fuck it. If Aleister Black gets an A, why not? But what Bray Wyatt was saying, you can say whatever you want. You can say, I'll do this. Or you can say, I am the darkness that consumes the world.
Undertaker used to do it. Undertaker used to do it at different times.
No, it matters what you do, not what you say. And what he's doing when he goes into the ring for any real meaningful moment is just taking the 1, 2, 3. It means nothing. It means not a job. And you get to flash forward all of this. The reason why Bray Wyatt is irrelevant is not because of the character, the man, the performer. It's because of the way he's been handled. And that sort of leads me nicely into where he is now with this new character, the
Fun House of
Firefly Fun Place, something like that. It's fine, it's great. It's got eyes on him again. But are we not just going to do the same thing, but from a different perspective here, which is he's going to cut these promos. I'm not entirely sure how this translates into the ring at all. Like, is he going to have puppets in the ring with him?
Well,
are they going to be like on the side?
When he first came out doing all this sort of happy, friendly character, like the whole Mr. Rogers angle, I said it's only a matter of time before you've got Isabel, the doll, whatever she's called,
Abigail,
Sister Abigail, some shit like that, appearing in the ring, the lights go out, and there she is, would you believe it? Oh, he was evil all along. When I was talking to you about it, I think I made an incorrect correlation with him and Doink the Clown, and a lot of the friends on the internet also made the same correlation. It was a cheap way of, oh, he's acting all nice, but guess what? He's really got a dark secret, and he's really a baddie all along, would you believe it? I think the difference is, and I think something that I've heard recently in the week is how he's different from Doink the Clown is Doink would always come across as a bastard. He never had like a nicey side until he turned into a comedy act with midgets and Dink and all of this. Yeah.
Which this could still go to.
Let's hope not.
Maybe not necessarily with midgets. I mean, it is 2019.
Yeah,
it is Vince McMahon.
2019. It's inclusive. That's what it is. It's inclusive. No, I think there's still going to be a bit of an uproar from certain right-wing individuals in America. Doink the Clown never got a chainsaw out. Bray Wyatt has, and yes, he's only attacked a cardboard cutout of former Bray Wyatt. But it seems like they're pushing the envelope for the sake of doing it. They're making him, yes, they're going with this angle of nicey, but he's a bit twisted. But maybe they have gone too far. And already, what have we had? We've had a 5-minute promo with him giving it the Firefly House of Fun or whatever it's called.
Which in 2 minutes is more intrigue than he's had for probably about 4 years.
But then if you're going to try and build up a character, give him an intrigue, and what we should say here as well is, fuck me, you've got yourself in a half-decent shape as well. If you've seen any pictures on Instagram or anything of Bray Wyatt now, he has lost a ton of weight. So he's obviously like putting his thumb out of his ass and trying to go down the whole Vince McMahon route of what he wants a wrestler to look like.
Well, apparently, a lot of this is on Bray himself. You know, he's got history in the business with like his family and everything. And also as well, we'll go back before we go forward. This is what we're talking about. Husky Harris.
Yeah.
And I'm not being smart for bringing him up for the sake of bringing him up. What I mean is that I don't think there are that many people, that many gimmicks that survive the complete retooling. The most you get out of it is once.
He got shit for it though, didn't he? When he came back as Bray Wyatt, and people were like, hang on a minute, I saw you in NXT once. Husky, let's go Husky.
Well, no, it was weird, and again, I think this goes back into what we were saying before about the fans and how they might be slightly annoying at times, which is when Bray Wyatt was in NXT, it was over and it was getting the reactions that you would expect it to get, and it was great, everything is going fine.
Yeah.
Then when he gets to Raw, and as I mentioned before, it was a big moment of him going to Raw. You had 2 weeks of Husky Harris, look at me, I know a thing. I can't just keep it to myself, I have to tell everyone else I know a thing on national TV and potentially ruin it for those around me and watching at home. Yay me! Yeah, no, wasn't a fan of that at all. But what I mean is that the most obvious examples are The Rock and Steve Austin. Rocky Maivia, the happy-go-lucky, plucky babyface, and I'm not even sure this is a complete retooling, but he's very different to The Rock, the Ringmaster, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. I can't think of an example of a guy who's been one thing, then another, who's made it. And I would even go so far as to say, there isn't exactly a litany of people who have made it from, you were one thing, now you're going to be something completely different, probably even a different name, and then you're a success at that. Generally speaking, when WWE does this whole, this isn't working, we've got to start again from scratch, we've got to change the name, it's a desperate move.
The Steve Austin one is, he was, victim's not the right word, but he's the victim of circumstance, wasn't he? He was the right place, he was the right guy in the right place, wasn't he? It all just happened to work out for him.
Sorry, that quote just threw me. I know why you said it, but it just threw me. Go on.
If he didn't have that feud with Bret Hart, would Steve Austin have been the person that he eventually turned into if the fashion and the nature and the popularity of wrestling at the time hadn't been going to that peak out of the trough? Would he have been, could anyone else have filled that role as Steve Austin of just being a person
but I think there's a huge difference between, I think, okay, slight tangent, but I think this is worth pointing out. Babyface Bret Hart that wins the hearts and minds of people and wins the title, you know, that guy that wrestling fans generally clamoured for, and whiny bitch Bret Hart that eventually became the guy that Steve Austin would feud with and turn and become that guy. That's just slight, subtle changes of a character. And I think, like, in the Austin example, Steve Austin is fortunate in that bit, but there's no way he could have done it as the Ringmaster.
No, he could have done. I think he could. Yes, shave your head, for fuck's sake, get rid of those luscious blonde locks. But I think he could have done still. It's just an attitude change for the same character. You can pull that off. How many times has Randy Orton bloody turned? How many times has the Big Show turned?
Turned, yes. But, like, Randy Orton didn't come out after, like, 2 years. And then he comes out one day and he's like, my name's Cedric McCheese and I'm a car dealer now. He's Randy Orton the whole time. There's a difference, a huge difference between some guy, and the example I would use in this is one we were talking about before we started the podcast, Chuck Palumbo. Chuck Palumbo, the generic jobber, and then Chuck Palumbo with the bike. You've changed the gimmick, and it's a little bit of a repackaging, but it's not the full-on, I don't know, you're Isaac Yankem DDS, now you're Kane.
Yeah.
And I just think that on the whole, there's an interesting example I've got in my head here. I know you mentioned one, so I'm going to save it for later. But on the whole, there aren't that many success stories when you have to change the name, the music, the gimmick, all of it. The one I'm going to throw at you right now as like a feeding frenzy to just throw onto the table like a
This
slab.
better be a good one because I'm going to trump you otherwise.
No, it's not going to be a good one. I just want to see what you make of this.
Yeah.
Dolph Ziggler, from the Spirit Squad to Dolph Ziggler.
It's a hell of a jump, isn't it? But then he didn't have like 5 other jobbers holding him back.
And ironically enough, I don't think like Dolph Ziggler is in and of itself a gimmick or a repackaging. It's more of an attitude. It's more of the whole subtleties between like Bret Hart of what I was saying. Like you've got this guy that says this and does this. If you were to say to me what's Dolph Ziggler's gimmick, I couldn't really tell you other than arrogant, and that's not a gimmick. That's a character trait.
Yeah.
But he's not a male cheerleader anymore.
It's a big old jump. The fact is, he got a gimmick because he's not being surrounded by, like I said, 5 other blokes that aren't really doing much.
Has he kind of done it in reverse? Is he the only example where it's sort of done in reverse? Because
Yeah,
the
I'm sure
cheerleader
so.
feels like the stretch you do after.
Yeah, what, when you're trying to get your career back on track,
Yeah.
so let's give himself a gimmick real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems that way, but again, I think that's probably just the nature of wrestling. Like, the time that Dolph Ziggler sort of became the Dolph Ziggler character, or at least the pinnacle of his career, is when CM Punk was doing CM Punk's thing of being, I'm going to be myself, turn it up to 11, and I'm going to cut the infamous pipe bomb, and basically I'm going to say it as it is. And the one I was going to talk about that managed to spawn or span quite a few years
I think I've got, go on.
was Mr. Charles Wright. Papa Shango, Khan Mustafa, the Godfather, the Good Father, then the Godfather again. Only for this past Royal Rumble. But that's someone that's sort of known their position in the company, known that you're going to have to take an element of what Steve Austin and CM Punk had to actually go to that next level by basically dropping your gimmick.
I've got 2 points I want to say to that. First point is Godfather, Goodfather, Godfather again. That's all in a one-automa.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's
Because
quite a change.
it's a linear transition from, okay, he was the Godfather, the pimp, you know, he had many ladies of the night in his company, to he joined the Right to Censor and he became the Good Father. So I can follow that as a linear progress, as opposed to he was the Godfather one week and then the next week he was Papa Shango.
Yeah.
That's a bit different. And also, generally speaking, these sort of instances, there's probably one example, but there's no way I'm going to remember it off the top of my head, tend to involve you being off TV for a while first. I can't think of an instance where you've been someone and then like, I mean, actually I've thought of one right now, but I'm not sure if this counts because we didn't know who the guy was beforehand really. But does Brodus Clay count?
What, being a monster then coming back as a dancer?
Well, no, the thing is that like he's a monster in the sense of like, we were promised a monster, but we never actually got him as a monster because it was like these promo packages, and then you get this segment of like Brodus Clay's going to debut today.
He beat Tensai, and then
this is going to be next week, and then when he eventually debuts, it's the Funkasaurus, and it's like I'm not sure if it's a repackaging because we didn't get the initial packaging.
Oh, you did? Only for a couple of matches though.
Speaking of Tensai, there's another one. Albert, A-Train, Tensai.
Yeah, but again, like you said about the Godfather and Goodfather, Albert to A-Train is very linear, isn't it? It's not really even a real repackage. It doesn't seem like a repackage. It's just a new name. That's all it is. He wasn't doing anything different.
I'll give you that. I mean,
his morals didn't change. At least when he came out back as Tensai.
Yeah, that's different.
That is literally a repackage. He's suddenly got a tattoo on his face, and he's wearing little red pants rather than a one-piece.
The ironic thing about it is as well is that like you've got an opportunity in this instance to explain, because there's a certain element of leeway that wrestling fans give with these kind of things, which is if you just go on Raw, he's been in Japan for a few years, which all the people that know these things, and the audience, especially at this particular time in wrestling when Tensai comes out, the majority, it's either kids that want to see John Cena and Smarks.
Yeah.
Right? So just say to the audience, he went to Japan and the culture influenced him to a certain degree that he went from this to this. As opposed to, this is a guy we've never seen before.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this guy from Japan who doesn't look like someone that had a tag team.
Like you said, the fans are smart enough to not be bullshitted like that. And that's why when they do push it down your throat as, oh, look at this new guy, that's when the fans start taking the piss and shouting, Albert.
Yeah.
Other examples. I think your argument of taking someone off telly for long enough, repackaging them, yes, it's certainly a valid point, but I think you can literally take anyone. You could take Hardcore Holly
What, like Spark Plug by Apollo?
Yeah, there's another gimmick. You could take Hardcore Holly as Hardcore Holly, put him on SmackDown this week, and you get one hell of a pop. Just because he's an old veteran that you haven't seen in donkey's years. Yeah. It's the same as why HBK shows up at WrestleMania every year. It's the same as why Dwayne shows up.
Well, there is a slight difference in your paycheck.
All right, yeah. It's slightly different between Shawn Michaels and The Rock and Hardcore Holly, but you stick Hardcore Holly on SmackDown 1 week, and he goes and has a feud with, not even a feud, you put him up against Daniel Bryan, because Daniel Bryan's doing sod all at the moment, just sort of flitting about whenever he decides to show up, and all of a sudden you're getting one hell of a pop and people talking about Hardcore Holly. It's the same as when, we're not going to get too sidetracked here, but it's the same as when, was it Heath Slater going on that run and losing to Sid Vicious and Vader and DDP and Doink the Clown? I think that was the only 4. There might be another one in there. You haven't got to repackage these people, just saving people's sanity by taking them off the telly for a while.
Right, there is
suddenly makes them appear a lot more appealing. And this is now coming full circle with Bray Wyatt. If they completely bollocks up this Bray Wyatt angle, people will talk about this anyway because it's, oh well, Bray Wyatt's back, we haven't seen him in a while. We cared absolutely jack shit for him when he went away, but now he's back. Hooray, he's the great white hope, he's the saviour.
No, all I'll do is this, right, and I don't think I'm very sceptical, as I said, about how this character and this gimmick translates to in-ring. And the one thing I think they need to do, which they didn't do in the first instance, is when Bray Wyatt does debut, when he does come back, when he does do a thing, he needs to go hard and he needs to win something big straight away.
Really?
Yes.
What do you mean win something big? What, put a belt on him and hope it gets over?
Well, no, it's over right now.
That's the sound downfall is his Randy Orton angle though?
No, because the Randy Orton,
on him, make him over.
The Randy Orton stuff was after 4 years of him losing to Cena, losing to Undertaker, like losing all the big matches that he had. Mm-hmm. What I mean is if he comes back, and I really don't think they'll do this, but like if he comes back and took the title off Kofi, that's fine. But here's the other thing I was going to say, just to slightly rewind on this. When these promos started airing after WrestleMania, and you saw like the puppet in the box, and people sort of twigged that it was Bray Wyatt very quickly anyway.
Cringe.
Yeah, the thought process was, okay, yes, he's been off TV for a while, but it's the same old bullshit. It's like slightly different. It's Bray Wyatt. I mean, what's he going to do when he comes back? So you like, and I completely agree with you that absence makes the heart grow fonder and all that. But no one was prepared to give the same old Bray Wyatt the benefit of the doubt if it had been just that. You needed something extra, you needed something. And what they've done is, instead of giving us something extra, they have swung for 90 miles an hour, trying to hit a home run on this. And whether they have the ability and the sort of nuance to go through with this the way it should have just been done in the first place. Yeah. But at the very least, it's not just we're getting the same old Bray Wyatt back.
I don't know, I think I texted you about this when it first came out, the whole Bray Wyatt angle. I think the best thing Bray Wyatt could have done is followed suit of multiple other wrestlers. So we talk about CM Punk and Steve Austin to some extent being their personality would turn up. Daniel Bryan's fallen into that same sort of category now as well. Maybe not as much appeal. I don't know why he hasn't got as much appeal, and I think that could be because of how everyone perceived him in the first place. Yeah. Or when he won the belt at WrestleMania 30, that's what I should say. I think the best thing Bray Wyatt could have done is gone down that route. He's a bold presence. You picture Bray Wyatt as just some sort of mid-card nobody. You picture Husky Harris as a mid-card. You picture him as this. But because he's now the figure that Vince McMahon wants him to cut, so he casts a decent silhouette rather than just being a fat fucker, why has he not just come back, gone down the whole Dave Spivey route, if you recall, Wikipedia accent, and just been, I'm from the southern states, I'm a bit pissed off about my previous position in the Fed, let's go and do some damage. Yes, you can't have a whole roster of that. Obviously you can't have a whole roster of men because all of a sudden you just become a UFC fighter. If people don't have a proper gimmick, you're not appealing enough. But you've got characters, you've got performers, I should say, that can be character actors and can do it a whole fucking lot better than Bray Wyatt ever could.
Really? I don't think there are that many people that could pull that off. The first instance or this instance, and the other thing I would say about this is when you've got a guy who has been originally repackaged as someone sort of out of the ordinary and whatever. Like, they never fully explained it, and they never had to. Like, it's not up to them. Like, they dropped the ball on it, but we didn't need to know the in-depth history of Bray Wyatt. But when you've got someone that has that sort of lore to him, can you really bring him back as just a guy?
Of course you can. But then I think at the same time you can do that to anyone. Another example you could say is Becky Lynch. She hasn't had like a gimmick or a character in the past, apart from NXT where she came out as an Irish dancer.
Yeah. Well, where she's from, Ireland, we've got her now. We know what her entrance is, yeah.
Sheamus. Let's talk about his ginger hair and his very pale skin.
He enjoys a Guinness.
It's called the brogue kick because all Irish people wear brogues. And he grew up on the mean streets of some small county in Ireland. And
hang on,
that's
maybe
why
he could have a
so
shillelagh and a leprechaun.
Exactly. I think you've got character actors that can carry off a gimmick. You haven't got as many as you used to have, but that's the nature of the beast, isn't it? But if you look to the likes of Chikara and a lot of indie wrestlers, or a lot of indie wrestling promotions, they're all gimmicks, they're all characters, because that's what casual fans, I know it's mean to say, especially for people that are paying their money to go and watch an indie show, but that's what casual fans want to see. They want to see these stories and things. That's the problem with the Fed, because it's too big to fail at the moment. People, because there's such a large fan base as well, people will just laugh a gimmick out of the building. And that's the problem with Bray Wyatt as well. Even with this Firefly stuff, people will laugh at it when he comes back. When he actually performs and he's doing exactly the same moves, people will laugh out the building.
Okay, that would be... I just want to address your point about the indies. In that instance, when you go to an indie show, your time to put over, especially with the casual fans, as you said, that won't know the ins and outs of the storyline, you're not on TV week after week, the time you have to go from, this is who I am, this is why I'm fighting this guy, I need to fight for a reason.
You barely have seconds.
Fucking literally. So you have got like your entrance basically to put over your character, that's it. So that's why they go all in, first of all. Secondly, I think in terms of, if you're saying when he comes back he's going to get laughed out of the building, that to me, I don't know where to finger someone on this.
Nice.
But because fundamentally it hasn't happened yet. But if that does happen, that will be a fault of the Fed or him. Because to go into this and just go, okay, we're going to do all this of a change, but I'm going to have the same moveset, the same sort of this, the same sort of... There has to be a difference in, I don't know, sort of physiology, if you want to call it that, the way your body moves, the way your body works. On the basis
well, he's done that side himself, hasn't he?
Yeah, but no, I just mean in terms of now that you've got this new body, it shouldn't move in the same way, because if I lost a lot of weight, I would run a lot faster. Like,
well,
my body would move differently.
Yeah, he's had enough time to work on a moveset.
Again, though, would you give him the credit to go that far into it?
I'd give him the credit, personally.
From what I've read...
If this bombs...
Yeah, that's it.
With any performer, if their character bombs and it doesn't get over, the last thing any fan should be doing, if you're a fucking casual or you're like a hardcore fan and you follow all of the promotions, the last thing you should be doing is pointing the finger at the actual performer. You point at the performer for one reason, and that's if they fuck a move up completely.
Even then, like, I just think the amount of moves you perform in, like, you're bound to, just on sheer odds basis, you're bound to get one.
Yeah, something. So
I would put I would
right.
only point the finger at the performer if I can tell they don't give a shit. But like, I think there's a good example here, and the one we haven't mentioned yet, in terms of gimmick performer, gimmick change, gimmick overhaul, and a guy that completely turned himself into something else. Dustin Rhodes.
What a guy.
Oh yeah.
What a guy.
Different successes, I would say.
Different successes. Fuck me, I'll take those successes any day of the week, you know what I mean?
Okay, different levels of success, which is what I mean. Like, certain characters stuck in the hearts and minds of people longer than others, shall we say. But here's my question, and I'm almost questioning myself here when I say this, is this not so much a gimmick repackaging or different gimmicks? Because I think the fundamental thing that separates Dustin Rhodes and Goldust to the rest, to a certain degree, is that obviously he's so much involved in all of them, as opposed to he's gone into work one day and he's gone, you're a truck driver now. And secondly, most of these guys are being repackaged because they're not over, and Goldust was. I think the difference in terms of him going to different federations makes it slightly harder as well in terms of a timeline. It's not like, as I mentioned, like he's gone into work one day, you've got a different gimmick because whatever you're doing isn't working. It's you've gone to a different company and you can't use what you've used before.
That was certainly the case for old Goldie, wasn't it? Yeah. In WCW, the stars had aligned and it was all in his favour. Obviously, his dad's heritage with WCW was quite a large factor. And the fact that Dustin Runnels got over as a gimmick because it wasn't even a gimmick, it's him, babyface white guy. Yeah. They made minimal connections to who his dad was, but the deciding factor in this was the fact that when he did get his biggest pushes, even when he wasn't Goldust, when he was just Dustin, plain old boring.
It goes back to your Austin things. It would have worked.
It got over, but he went over Steve Austin in WCW. He went over Bret Hart in WCW at one stage. The reason that happened is because his dad was booking it, and so yes, that certainly helps, but.
Helps, but it's not defining.
No, it's not defining because it was a good character and he was a decent wrestler.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, when he starts jumping to promotions and then, because he's had a bit of a tumultuous career, you know, where he seems to have a few problems and he jumps about and he flits about, people are prepared to take him back because one, he's entertaining, two, he's obviously got the right gimmick, and three, yes, he hasn't got the most exciting moveset, but he's still a decent performer at the end of the day.
And this feels like a backhanded compliment, but it's not. I mean this with the greatest of respect. He's the wrestler's wrestler. He's the guy that you need in any circumstances, in any sort of thing you can fit in. It is actually a unique example in the sense of every other person that we've mentioned and every other person that we will go on to mention is kind of they're running the same federation, whereas it would have been fucking fascinating if he'd have turned up from Goldust one week and then like Black Rain the next on Raw.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting. Or Seven. It's like, how many people have that many different gimmicks in different federations, full stop? You know, fair play to it for that. But that leads me on to my sort of, not an end point on this, but sort of the only real argument, I would say, between this idea of repackaging a guy and it getting over.
Cody Rhodes.
No, that would have been an easy transition. Yeah.
Oh, rubbish.
I think I could mention as a casual aside, actually, we're talking about one federation guys versus Goldust going all over the shop. American Badass Undertaker and like a Phenom Undertaker. And there are actually like even subtle incarnations of each, but I still feel like that's one, but it's not the point. The one I'm going for, it's the most obvious one of them all, it's Mick Foley.
See, at the same time, like we said with Goodfather, Godfather, they all run sort of, not concurrently, apart from that one WrestleMania where Mick Foley came out as the three individual characters. It was linear, wasn't it? They all bled together. Apart from when Cactus Jack was in ECW and WCW, that was the only time, because Mankind was never there. He was only introduced when he was in the Feds, because it was the Feds' idea.
This is the thing I think.
Would you say Mankind's the weakest of the three characters?
It's Dude Love, it's got to be.
It can't be Dude Love. That's his heritage. That's his backstory.
No, because Dude Love.
That was his whole dream, wasn't it? That was his idea of what a wrestler should be.
Yeah, but I just think like I don't personally think that Dude Love is that bad, but the way that like WWE shits on Dude Love,
they just didn't give him the time. I think that's what it was, and because the fans didn't want that at the time he's showing up, you've got Steve Austin being a bit of a bastard.
I think actually there is a key point here that we've sort of stumbled upon accidentally. This is why we're the greatest podcast of all time, which is you've got to separate the idea of if you've got separate gimmicks versus the Fed sitting you down and going, sorry, you're not cutting it, and this. And for as much work as Bray Wyatt, as much work as he put into the actual Bray Wyatt character, and as much work as he's put into this, and we've only seen one fucking promo, it's different to just going, okay, I'm Mankind, I'm Dude Love, I'm Cactus Jack.
Rotunda.
Institution, yeah, I'm what? The second name,
I've got the second name, sorry, Shooter.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah.
One of them Rotunda lads.
Also, as well, just to throw this out there for the shits and giggles, if we can get creepy Bo Dallas involved somehow, why not?
What, his sister Abigail?
No,
imagine, that'd be fucking brilliant if he came out and like the dad was a bit iffy. Would you believe it? IRS was a bit of a wrong one.
All I'll say
Boy named Sue all over again.
Best thing I've heard about this gimmick by far is the thing I told you before we recorded, which is that every time a wrestler goes from heel to face, a puppet version of them should appear in the Playhouse, because it's basically the centre of all evil, and that is the evil version of them. Because it doesn't exist on TV, it exists there.
How many dolls would you have at the big show then?
Enough.
Just a whole
Enough.
shelf of big shows.
I'm not suggesting you change the doll every time. You could just take the doll away.
What's the doll looking like as well? These three important factors. Does it look like a Barbie doll? One of them sock 'em, rock 'em, what was them punching bag looking?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, like a fella like that.
Like a plushie of him?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Just standard big show fare, to be honest with you. You don't need that much.
The Fed can take that idea, actually. Think of all that merchandising, think of all that money all these jobbers are suddenly making.
I can't be honest with you, like, the idea of...
People would collect them, they'd be like fucking Beanie Babies.
How long before we actually get the Bray Wyatt, like, family tree funhouse thing as toys? That must exist already, surely.
Christ, the family tree's never going to stop growing. You could have a whole bloody Royal Rumble just with Bray Wyatt's siblings and cousins and brothers and...
A gimmick battle royal, perchance.
Amazing.
Yes.
The Wyatt Royal Rumble.
Indeed.
Spelled Wyatt with an R somehow.
Riot?
Riot. Even better. The Riot Squad are part of Bray Wyatt's clan.
Yeah, why not?
Everyone should be involved.
Indeed. I think just to sort of... We're not a closing argument stage, because we're not arguing. We're very polite, we're very cordial in this discussion during a course of a few beverages and wrestling.
No.
All right.
There's my counter argument.
It's not really a counter argument, it's just a
Just
direct
one word.
statement.
No.
Yeah. How's that a counter argument? Jeez. In terms of wrestlers having to be retooled, as it were, that's a harsh comment, actually, because generally speaking, what happens is, and I think we've said this at numerous times during the podcast, is when you say, oh, he's been retooled, that suggests he didn't have any tools in the first place. What happened 99% of the time is the guy had all the tools, or at least some of them. Generally speaking, very rarely, Chuck Palumbo, they have none of them. But they had enough, but then whatever happened. Circumstances, booking, people liked certain people jumped onto certain things, so, okay, yeah, we'll give you a motorbike, Chuck. That's what's going to do it. And as I mentioned at the very start, the hype for Bray Wyatt, and maybe there is an element to in wrestling, I think, I'd say maybe in life in general, but just in wrestling, people are suspicious of hype. People are suspicious of, if something gets traction, you immediately do the counter of, oh, I need to pull away from that because it's either going to go wrong and I want to be the first one to be on the, I told you it was going to go wrong bandwagon, or just, I don't like being told what I like. So
then you're in the same boat as Fed though, aren't you? If you start going down that route as a fan.
Yeah, no, I know.
Oh, it's got traction. What if it all goes tits up? I want to be the one that says I told you so. That's why the Fed cut Rusev off, didn't they? Because Rusev, organic things shouldn't get over. Yeah. No one from the Fed side is getting the glory for it.
I've said this to you outside of the podcast, but look at the Iconics since WrestleMania. Before WrestleMania, they had a nice little run of them just doing their thing, and now they're on Raw, scripted promos, and it's like, yeah, you didn't really get what was making them in the first place. Yeah. But with Bray Wyatt, it is full on the WWE machine behind it, and with all these repackages, it's full on there behind it. I don't think anyone's actually looking at this and going, I want this to fail. There are certain people that are looking at this and going, I'm not a fan, but
I still want it to work. Like, I'm probably in that camp. If you're trying to enjoy anything, the last thing you want is it to all go tits up, and for the Fed or any major company to basically knock what you're enjoying or trying to enjoy on the head straight away. You want hiccups in the road though.
Oh yeah.
You want hiccups in the road because that's what makes the end product more exciting and more enjoyable. The problem is, in wrestling, in this particular business, if you do get one hiccup,
that's it.
They cut the legs out from under you, don't they?
Oh,
it's just like, well, you're done then, you fuck that up. See you later.
What I was going to say is that, like, if you...
Back to AEW.
Steady. Jeez.
Sorry, I've got to stop that.
Ray Bryant. Jeez, he's going to be great. But what I meant is, like, in terms of, like, films as well as TV and wrestling, there's so many possibilities on the table. And when you see this promo, this debut, newfangled thing, this character that's so different to what we've seen, and it's different, but it's like it plays into our preconceptions of like, I was a bad man, so he's like acknowledging everything, and you just go, oh man, he's gonna do this because he's gonna be like this, and he's gonna do this. And we've got to a point now where we can't let them tell the story. It's, I've told the story in my head, having seen one promo, and if they don't follow that beat for beat, they're wrong.
Oh, of course.
Oh yeah.
Because they could have done it better. They could have done it the way I'm thinking. They could have done it the way Matey's thinking.
Yeah.
Am I now playing devil's advocate and taking the Fed side and saying...
Just let them tell the story. Yeah. There are certain markers along the way, as we said, if the moveset's the same, if he cuts promos endlessly on a loop in the same way that Bray Wyatt did and then never does anything when he does debut. Ironically enough for Bray Wyatt, they literally have a checklist of things not to do that they can already go and consult with what they did before.
Isn't that ultimately the role of the heel, though? The heel can win as many matches on Raw and SmackDown as they want. Bray Wyatt was a heel.
Yeah.
Wasn't he? He was a heel all day long, even if you enjoyed his presence or you enjoyed his 15-minute rambles.
He was heel, but what did he actually do that was heelish?
Well, nothing, because he was still trying to... It was when he was Bray Wyatt with the dreadlocks and being a bit of a portly fellow, he was still trying to tell people... He was essentially trying to brainwash people, wasn't he? That's why he came across the hill. He was, I'm going to show you the light, I'm going to show you the right way of... I'm going to show you the passage forward. All of this, and so he should have essentially to right-wing America. He's coming over as a face, especially because he's Southern as well. Fuck me, the stars have aligned and it all works out. The issue is because we're seeing him as a heel. The role of a heel is to ultimately lose because you want the hero to have the moment.
I agree.
And so when he's having these big matches, let's see, John Cena, face.
Yeah.
Even though he's getting booed. Undie Man,
face.
Randy Orton. And this pains me to say.
Oh, no, I'm with you.
They're all the faces. That's the point of the hill, especially on major shows. These 3 matches that we've named all happened at WrestleMania.
Yeah, again, completely agree. But the problem with the way you're talking is that for a good heel to work, he has to be a credible threat. The way Bray Wyatt
was a credible threat.
No, he wasn't. How was he credible?
He won on Raw and SmackDown.
That's not credible.
That's the point of the heel.
That's not credible. He did nothing that was actually heel. The comparison I would make is that Bray Wyatt, as we saw him, was if you'd watched a Nightmare on Elm Street film where Freddy Krueger spent an hour and a half talking about what he was going to do to you, and the first time he met a teenager, he died. He has to kill people along the way.
He does. That's Raw and SmackDown. When it comes to the main... if you're going to make the Freddy Krueger analogy, when it comes to the main event, a.k.a. the end of the film... Guess who wins? Not Freddy Krueger.
I'm fine with Cena winning. I'm fine with Undertaker winning. I'm fine with Orton winning in context. But the fact of the matter is, at no point did I buy Bray Wyatt as a threat to all 3 of those people. And if he were a credible threat, then it would have made for a lot better encounter in the meantime. I think at the end of the day, the point being that we've sort of... And the reason why it's got interestingly heated in the last few minutes as we try and wrap this up, is that we both saw Bray Wyatt, at least from a position of, to begin with, of, okay, the same as what we're saying with the new character, there's so much you can do, there's so many different ways you can do it, and I think the consensus is, if they do it the same way, it'll turn out the same way. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Albert Einstein said that.
You did.
Did he? Or is it just an Instagram quote that I took and...
I don't know if it's the big A train. Albert Einstein.
He was the real A train all along.
Or if, in inverted speech brackets here, if they said it. But someone certainly said it's true.
Yeah, fair enough. I think the definition of insanity is not listening to this podcast and thinking it's the best podcast of all time, because I think that would be foolish.
Crazy.
Indeed. This has been Beyond the Beermat. We've been talking about Bray Wyatt's Fun Time Playhouse, which is definitely not what it's actually called. And thank you for listening. We'll catch you again very soon.